Good evening. We're glad to have you here. We're going to start off by singing The Power of the Cross. And you know what? Why don't you just stay seated on this one as we sing Power of the Cross.
Oh, to see the dawn of the darkest day, Christ on the road to Calvary, tried by sinful men, torn and beaten then, nailed to a cross of wood. 'Tis the power of the cross. Christ became sin for us, took the blame, bore the wrath we stand forgiven at the cross. Oh, to see the pain written on your face, bearing the awesome weight of sin, every bitter thought, every evil deed, crowning your blood-stained brow, is the power of the cross. Christ became sin for us, took the blame, bore the wrath we stand forgiven at the cross. Oh, to the light flees, now the ground beneath quakes as its maker bows his head, curtain torn in two, dead or raised to life, finished the victory cry, is the power of the cross. Christ became sin for us, took the blame, bore the wrath we stand forgiven at the cross. Oh, to see my name written in the wounds, for through your suffering I am free. Death is crushed to death, life is mine to live, won through your selfless love, is the power of the cross. Son of God, slain for us, what a love, what a cost, we stand forgiven at the cross.
Then for our second song, we're going to sing Same God. Would you stand with us on this one, please? Same God.
I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the oceans. I need you now to do the same thing for me. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You moved in power then, God moved in power now. You are the same God, you are the same God. God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now.
Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome. And if we can get some people to get some guys to take the offering, I would appreciate it. While they're getting ready, let me remind you, Precious Life Banquet, March 20th. If you need tickets, see Don Myers, donation $25. Keep praying for Eric Fritz, family there, the Osborne family. If you would like to sign up to help with the Easter breakfast, make sure you see Becky about that. And then if you want your name on the prayer chain, all right, guys, come on forward. If you want your name on the prayer chain, see Janice. And that way, and again, if you don't necessarily want to get a call, that's fine. You can get a text, but that way we have a group of people praying. Game dinner's coming up this week, so make sure. Boy, I should pull my messages out here again. At the Wednesday, where'd it go? It's here somewhere. All right, tables, getting 10 o'clock Wednesday. And then chairs Friday, 10 o'clock. Again, meet here at the church. So Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock. Friday morning, 10 o'clock. And then set up 5 o'clock Friday night. That's this weekend. So be planning about that. Teen Extreme, pray that those kids get off the waiting list so they can go. And then March 22nd, that's at 6 o'clock, our annual tick service, Teens in Charge of Church. And then the dessert auction afterwards. So that always helps the teenagers. It make them for them and their families more affordable to go to camp this summer. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for this evening, for the opportunity to, again, give back to you as you've blessed. So we dedicate this money to you in advance and ask you just, Lord, that we'll be obedient to you on an individual basis, then we're obedient, that we will be obedient as a church, and how to properly use your money. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. And let's sing that song, Trust and Obey. Would you stand, please, as we sing Trust and Obey? when we walk with the Lord in the light of His Word. What a glory He sheds on our way. While we do His good will,
He abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Not a shadow can rise, not a cloud in the skies, but His smile quickly drives it away. Not a doubt nor a fear, not a sigh nor a tear can abide while we trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Then in fellowship sweet we will sit at His feet, or we'll walk by His side in the way. What He says we will do, where He sends we will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey.
Then let's sing one more song this evening, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. What a fellowship, what a joy divine,
leaning on the everlasting arms.
what
A blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms.
Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus,
Leaning on the everlasting arms.
oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way,
leaning on the everlasting arms.
oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear?
Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms.
Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus,
Safe and secure from all alarms.
Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, leaning on the everlasting arms. Thank you. May be seated. Last week we started a series, Lessons from a Sheepdog, and I didn't finish the message from last week, and then so I'm going to finish that, and then we'll get into lesson 1. And let me get us to the right spot here. Okay, now this isn't working. All right, here we go. All right, so last week, if you would now turn to Matthew chapter 14. Matthew chapter 14. Last week we were in Mark chapter 6, and it was, I can't do two things at once. Matthew 14. Go to the right place. So last week we were in the book of Mark chapter 6, and it was talking about where Jesus, it was Mark's account of the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus walking on the water, and it talks about that, and Jesus would have passed them by, and it says that in verse 52, because they considered not the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. And so we looked back at some things, and we talked about our history with peace. In chapter 4, verse 35 through 41, Jesus was stilling the storm. The disciples thinking they're going to die. Their history with power. And in chapter 5, because the peace is Jesus said, let's go across the sea. This is where they say, Master, care us not that we perish. Then chapter 5, the woman touches the hem of his garment, and she's healed from years of a bleeding disease. Then he raises Jairus' daughter, and then our history is provision, the feeding of the 5,000. Then our hardness, and that's in chapter 6, hardness from the problems. We talked about the disciples and the responsibilities they had, their realization, their rest, as the problems that they had been going through with they were out serving. Then they found out John the Baptist had been killed, all of that. Then Jesus says, let's go rest. And then the hardness from not just the problems, but the people, where they're thinking they're going to get to go relax, and they come and the people beat them where they were going, and Jesus has compassion on them. And it's like, why would he do that? We need rest. And so the hardness from the people. Then the hardness from the pressure, and that was in John chapter 6, where the people are talking about making Jesus king, taking him by force and making him king. And Jesus says, beat it, boys. And we talked about the word constrain there means to compel or force. Jesus says, get in the boat, beat it. I'm going to send the multitudes away. So that would have even been frustration there for the disciples, going, seriously? I mean, come on, at least we can have something from all this work that we're doing. Then the last point that in the message from last week is our hesitation. Our hesitation. And that's from Matthew chapter 14. And if you would look with me in verse 28, Matthew 14, verse 28. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come to the ship, the wind ceased. And I don't remember if we prayed for this, but so let's ask God's blessing. Lord, help us as we look into your word. As we look at these, we look at this from your word, and then look at the lessons from the sheepdog that we're going to talk about, that you would teach us what you want us to know this evening, please. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, so our hesitation. First of all, our hesitation to submit. Our hesitation to submit. In verse 27 of Matthew chapter 14, Jesus says, and straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. All right, so we sometimes, when it comes to a hesitation, we hesitate to submit, because we say, wait a second, no, I'm not submitting to anyone, because I'm going to do my own thing. Well, here's the truth of the matter. There is no such thing as absolute freedom. There's just not. Something or someone is going to be our master or our ruler. It just is. In the years as I've talked with teenagers, I said, here's the deal. you can go to the worst gang in history. I know several years ago, the one of the most feared, no, probably the most feared gang in all of the world was a gang called MS-13. Those are bad dudes, man. And the thing that scared everybody is they didn't just go up, they didn't just drive-by shootings. They would clubs, and it wasn't a quick death. It was just really bad. And so they were just feared. And I think there's some other ones now along with MS-13. But it still comes down to this. You go to the nastiest gang in all the world, there is going to be rules in that gang. You are going to follow their rules. You say, no, I'm going to have freedom. No, you're gonna follow. The gang is going to have rules that you go by. You're gonna listen to the head of that gang. So wherever you go to prison, you're going to be in rules. There are always rules. So you might as well just submit. And then even if you say, well, I'm just going to go out in the middle of nowhere and I'm going to I'm going to be absolute freedom. There are some rules or laws, if you will, that it doesn't matter. Go ahead. Rebel against the law of gravity. I dare you. Come on. Okay, rebel, go ahead. Decide you are going to rebel against the law of the fact that we need oxygen to live. Jump in the water and plan on living in there. Go ahead. Come on, show how good of a rebel you are. There are just some laws that it does not matter. You are going to have to follow those rules. And so there is no such thing as absolute freedom. So Peter here, he does, all the guys are scared. He says, Lord, if that is you, bid me come into thee on the water. But then look at our hesitation to submit. And we all have that. And sometimes, let me just take a second and talk about this. Do you ever have, the Bible talks about a besetting sin. And there are certain things that are just rough, that it seems like we just can't get victory over it. And you might be doing something, because yesterday I did all this driving. You might be driving. You might be sitting out in a tree stand. You might be whatever, working at the house, working at your job, whatever. And all of a sudden, a temptation hits you, just like, wow. And sometimes like, where does this come from? And there's two things that the Bible talks about, or two basic ideas. First of all, we are supposed to daily die to our flesh. So the Bible talks about there are three things that, three areas of temptation. The world, the flesh, and the devil are three sources of temptation. The world, the flesh, and the devil. So when temptation comes, first thing, I die to my flesh. And just even making that statement, I right now, this temptation, I'm dying to my flesh. Because it could be something, because really, the world isn't just the sphere that we're on, but the idea that I don't need God, that I can do this on my own. Well, that kind of goes back more to the flesh also, or a pleasure of the flesh. So I die to my flesh. Then the Bible says, submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So I need to die to my flesh. Temptation comes. I'm not sure where the temptation is coming from. Die to my flesh, and then make sure I'm submitted to God, resist the devil, and he flees. Or he has to flee from us. And so submission is crucial. But then also surrendering. Look at verse 31. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? If I won't surrender, okay, because I might submit to an idea, but talking about total surrender to that, and thinking about, because in this, where it says, where it's lessons from a sheepdog, we'll get into this, but it has the idea of my master. Okay, I can submit, but then do I surrender myself to that idea? When Peter, he was put into this situation, he either surrendered to the fact that he couldn't do what God had to, or he either surrendered himself to the Lord, or he was overcome by the storm and the water. So this thing of surrender, Peter, when he got out there, he submitted himself to the idea of, okay, well, Lord, let me come out here to you. But then everything started happening, and all of a sudden he took his eyes off the Lord, got his eyes on the circumstances. That's so easy to do. He starts to sink, and then right away, Lord, save me. He asked God the Lord to save him, and the Lord saves him. And in that point, Jesus said, "O thou of little faith, wherefore to set out?" So that hesitation that we have to submit to an idea, to submit to something like that, but then that not just a surrendering, okay, Lord, not me, but you. And then the last thing, and then we'll get into this, the rest of this first lesson, to be single. Now, kids, that doesn't mean, it is so funny, these teenagers, but I'm single. Well, of course you are. You're not married. I mean, now single is you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I'm single. You know, it used to be single. You were single until you said I do and you got married. Then you weren't single anymore. Now, nope. Oh no, they're not single. They have they're single. They're not married. No, they have a significant other. They have a boyfriend or girlfriend. That's not marriage. Well, okay, all right. I'm not talking about whether you're married or not. Single as in my focus. While Peter's focus was on Jesus, he walked on the water. But when his focus changed, he started to sink. What is our focus? You say, but Pastor Dave, I can't just think about one thing. I understand that. But because there are many things that we deal with on a daily basis. You know, our homes, our jobs, our finances, our friendships, all kinds of things come at us. But my focus needs to be, am I pleasing God? Remember that thy kingdom come. Do I have a kingdom focus? That whatever I am doing, I am about his kingdom business. Do I have a single focus? And we tend to hesitate on that because it can be scary. Now, let's go to the lesson 1 in Lessons from a Sheepdog. All right, lesson 1, and let's go to Romans chapter 6 on this. Romans chapter 6. And what I should do is give you a little bit of a background. This man, Philip Keller, and I would encourage you, if you read, or maybe if you are not a great reader, do the audiobook or something. Well, I don't know if this is on audiobook or not, but this book is really neat. It's short. It's not a long book, but man, some neat lessons in this. Lessons from a Sheepdog. And what happens is Philip Keller, he grew up in, I think he said South Africa, and he worked for his dad, and they had a ranch, and they raised cattle. And he did that. Well, then he had gone to college for his agriculture or something, and I think he was in Vancouver or something, because he came to North America, and he found a piece of ground that he wanted to buy, because he wanted to raise cattle like his dad had. And then, because it was, the story goes, I'm trying to remember, he went to buy it, but it was a foreclosure or something, so it had to be cash. So after that, he had no money to buy any cattle, so he had to go with sheep. And his cattle dog was named Patty, I think it was. He said Patty, P-A-D-D-Y, not Pat, not you, Patty. And this dog was incredible with the cattle. But when it came to sheep, the dog was totally confused. So he needed a sheepdog. So one day in the newspaper, he sees a thing about a sheepdog, and kind of, I need to get rid of this dog fast. So he calls, the dog's still available. He drives into this town 30 minutes away or something like that to go find this dog. And he says he gets there, and it's in town, and this owner is pretty desperate. And so he said, well, can I at least see the dog? He goes back. It is a border collie. And the border collie, he said, not only has a chain around its neck, and it's chained to a stake in the ground, but it is also, there's a chain going from the collar to its hind leg. And he said that, the fur is all matted, and the dog just looks a mess. And the owner is telling him that this dog, it just wouldn't behave itself. It would chase boys on bicycles. It chased all kinds of things. It would even jump the fence and chase cars. And so it was a nuisance in the neighborhood. Now, I have heard this. There are certain dogs, like the Australian Shepherd, Border Collies, these dogs that they're bred to work cattle, work sheep, whatever, that you've got to give them a job. If they don't have a job, they're going to be a bad dog. And so this dog didn't have a job. So his job was chasing boys on bicycles, chasing cars, and being a total nuisance. So because of that, this dog gets chained, then it slips his chain, so then it's hobbled, and the guy, and this guy, the way he writes is neat. He just, wow, you just feel like you're right there. But he said this dog was actually forging its own chains. And I thought, what a statement. That dog, now, and I don't remember if I said this lesson number 1 is in the wrong hands. In the wrong hands. So this dog was in the wrong hands. The wrong master had this dog. And this lady was desperate. And he said he went to try to pet this dog. The dog growled at him, bared its teeth, all that. And he made a deal. He said, I will take this dog, but here's the thing. I will take it and see if I can train it, because it's 2 years old. And he said, a lot of times dogs, they already know they've learned everything they're going to learn in the first 2 years. He said, I will take the dog for 6 weeks. And he said he could see the potential in this dog, the way it's the body formation, all of that. He said he saw great potential in this dog, but he said if the dog will not be trained or listen to him in the 6 weeks, he said, I will bring it back to you, and you are the one that's going to destroy the dog, not me. He said, I couldn't do that to such a magnificent creature. So he takes the dog, he unchains it, puts his own collar on it, puts it in the car. As he's driving home, he tries to talk to it. He said even he went to try to reach back, the dog would growl and snap at him. And so this dog was just, it just was not good. All right, so it definitely had been a dog in the wrong hands. Let's look at Romans chapter 6. Look at verse 12, please. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal bodies, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God, as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness. So the thing is this, we are going to be ruled by someone or something. We will be ruled. So first question is this, who is our ruler? Who is our ruler? Let me go to, I need to read something to you here. Sorry. He named the dog Lass. I don't want to read the whole thing. He's talking about God and what the things that God wants to do for us. He said, very often, as in my first encounter with Lass, he, speaking of God, finds us cast in the wrong role, caught in the toils of our own interest, that a big word that I don't know how to pronounce it, abuse and misuse by wrong hands of an uncertain, uncaring master. This truth struck me with tremendous impact the day I drove up to the lady's gate and heard her rant and rave about her crazy collie. She had no inkling of how to handle such a beautiful creature, bred for special service, nor did she seem to care that all the potential locked up in this animal had gone wrong. It was a profound portrait of so many of us, for in the dusty dog hobbled with chains, I saw portrayed the plight of men and women who, originally designed for noble service, have fallen into the wrong hands. Now they groveled in the despair of wasted, misspent years. The skilled master breeders of the border counties in Britain had produced sheepdogs of acute intelligence and enormous energy. A beautiful specimen like Lass carried within her the capacity for outstanding work, but she had to be in the right hands. She had to come into the care of a good shepherd. She had to have her old habits broken and her instincts channeled into purposes for which she had been bred. The same principle holds true for us. We have been created in the generous sovereignty of God to achieve great things with Him. He endows us with the capacity to carry out His will and to do His work in the world as we work together under His care, and in His intention that we should touch lives, enrich spirits, and bring souls into His care and management. For this to happen, we must be loosed from the tyranny of the wrong owner. We must be released from servitude to sin, to self, and to our slave master, Satan. This implies, of course, that a person is unshackled from one owner to be brought under the management of another. There is no such thing as absolute freedom. For even though human beings are free agents, they must come under the control of forces and influences greater than themselves. Often young people boast of being free to do as they wish, to go wherever they will, or become whatever they choose. This is only partially true. For though they may not realize that their decisions, their behavior, their lifestyle are not those of their own free will, rather they are conditioned, shaped, and directed by the hands that govern them. Unfortunately, Lass had fallen into the wrong hands. Under the mishandling of the wrong owner, her talent had been twisted and subverted for destructive ends. Her vitality and instincts were being wasted on chasing boys and bicycles. Her capacity for worthwhile work was expended on the empty pursuit of cars. Man, that's just what a statement. Her talent had been twisted and subverted for destructive ends. Her vitality and instincts were being wasted on chasing boys and bicycles. Her capacity for worthwhile work was expended on the empty pursuit of cars. The upshot was, day by day, she herself unwittingly was forging the shackles of steel that bound her. Now, let me just stop there with that. And there's so much more, but sometimes you see, maybe you're around somebody, maybe this somebody's us, but you get around somebody and they just drive you crazy. They're nasty, they're bitter, they're whatever. And you just don't even want to be around them. And so, sometimes you can go, what in the world? What is going on? But then maybe, just maybe, that person is in the wrong hands. Maybe because of the fact that I believe the Bible teaches that God has created us with a purpose. Maybe it's because they're not fulfilling the purpose that God had planned for them, and they're just in the wrong hands, and their energies are wasted on the pursuit of chasing cars. So maybe what needs to happen is that person that irritates the fire out of us, that we don't even want to be around, that maybe our insides get tight and just at the mention of their name, maybe we should start praying that they get under the control of the right master. Okay, so who is our ruler? First of all, the specifics. In this, who is our ruler? The specifics. Who or what gets our time? So our free time, our focus. Who or what gets that? Secondly, who or what gets our treasure? In other words, where does our money go? And the third thing, Who or what gets our talents? What we dedicate our abilities towards. Now, the person or the thing that gets their free time, our focus, our money, our abilities, we dedicate our abilities towards, that is our ruler. No matter what it is, we've got to be careful. But, and again, it's not that we need to come and sit in the church all the time. God did not call everybody to be pastors or foreign missionaries. But God called all of us to fulfill the purpose that he built us to do. Just like that collie was not built to stay in a yard in town. That border collie was built to go out and herd sheep. And I'll tell you, just to give you a little potential here, this dog becomes a phenomenal a sheep dog. He eventually gets to a point that at first the dog responds to commands, and there's a lot between here and what I'm telling you. But then it comes to a point after the dog works with his verbal commands, the dog starts to work with hand signals. So the dog could be a long ways from him, and he can still direct the dog to work. And this dog was incredible once it was in the hands of the right master. And the dog that was a snarling, snapping, biting, nasty, growling, chase kids, chase cars dog becomes and I've got to finish rereading the book. I've read part of it. I think even to a point, this dog got so well known that people would come watch. Is that right? That people would come watch the dog work sheep. She was that good. Why? She's in the hands of the right person. So that person that you just want to give up on, don't give up on them. Start praying that God helps them get the right master. But the specifics, and here's the thing, that we talked about the surrender, the submission, the single focus, that comes down to this. Am I willing to admit who my ruler is? Who or what gets my time, my treasure, my talents? Then the second thing is the significance of that. So who you say, what's the big deal? Okay, who is our ruler? Specifics, but the significance is, in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, Jesus said we cannot have two masters. We will serve a master, but who will it be? And this, if sin, apathy, laziness, or basic desires of our flesh seem to control our lives, then ultimately Satan is sitting on the throne of our life. In fact, let's look at this real quick. Matthew chapter 12. Turn back to Matthew chapter 12. And this morning we were talking about apathy, and it's mentioned here too, but we've got to understand this. For context, let's look at verse 25. And Jesus knew their thoughts and said, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? And if I by Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore, they shall be your judges. But if I cast out devils by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come unto you. Or else, how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house? He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathereth not with me scattereth abroad. Listen to that again. He that is not with me is against me, and he that scattereth not or gathereth not with me scattereth abroad. So the significance is Jesus is going, look, you're either for me or you're against me. Who is your master? There's a huge significance in this. And it might not, this thing you say, well, Satan isn't controlling my life. Well, it might not look like he's occupying the throne of our life, but the devil does not care how religious or good we look as long as he is in control. He's the master of subtlety. So who is in charge? There's a huge significance. And if I am in my life, everything about me is to please me, that's not for Christ. And Jesus said, if you're not for me, you're against me. So if my life is controlled by me pleasing me, No, I'm not out doing seances and doing the pentagram and saying Satan is Lord or anything like that. I may not be doing all that. But if my whole life is focused on pleasing me, the devil is behind that. He is my master. Yeah, we don't like, but that's the significance of it. So the who or what that is occupying the throne of our lives is very important. So who is our ruler? The specifics, the significance. Then secondly, what is our restraint? What is our restraint? As he was going to get this dog was resisting. Interesting, even when he brought it home, the dog, he had this nice new kennel for it. He had put a bowl of fresh water. His wife had food out there for him. The dog would not go into the kennel. It would just lay down. And he had a leash on it, and so left the dog in there. Day after day after day, the dog would not eat. It refused to eat. And it started getting skinny because it refused to eat. And why? Why? What was the restraint? Well, the dog had been mishandled by the wrong master, and so the dog held back. The dog didn't trust him. So, what is our restraint? Well, what's holding you back? First of all, the first question is it fear? Is it fear? 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Is it normal? Is it humanly normal for us to be afraid? Yes, it is. Is it humanly normal when you get kicked to be afraid of being kicked again? Yes, it is. When someone does you wrong, that you're afraid that everybody's going to do you wrong? Yes, it is. It's humanly normal. Is that why we're holding back? But think about this. This dog was missing out on an incredible master. It was missing out on good water and good food because it was afraid. It didn't trust humans. And so it was missing out. And this fear. And that's why, because fear is a normal thing with we as human beings, that's why God said, for God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Now, this is not saying, I'm not talking about common sense here, where you get up next to you're up real high and you're a little afraid to, hey, I don't really want to jump off of this. It's only 3,000 feet down. Well, no, that's common sense. The fear, but God hasn't given that spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Also, know this, and this is not necessarily in this lesson, in my notes for sure, but confusion. Remember, confusion is not of God either. God says he is not the author of confusion. But if there is something that is holding me back and it's just pure fear, and again, I this morning I was talking to Dalton, and they were talking about, they went out riding dirt bikes yesterday, which, we're talking about Hatfield coming up, and he talked about this one hill climb they were going, and that one of the guys got wiped out, I think 3 times on the same route as he's climbing the hill. And I've said this before, Dalton and Colden, those boys can ride, wow. It's like, I think they can climb anything. I think if they tried, they'd climb that wall. I don't know, but man, they are phenomenal dirt bike riders. And when they're talking about the Austin wiping out 3 times going up, and I said, yeah, and that would have been the place that I would have sat there and watched you guys. Because there's just some things those boys do. They'll be like, hey, let's climb that. And I'm like, hey, I'll watch. Because now, maybe it's fear, but I would like more say that's common sense. I'm not trying to ride my dirt bike up there because I don't want to wipe out. All right, so that's what I'm talking about. But fear, the fear. Peter, the other disciples, they didn't get out of the boat. Why? Because they're afraid of the storm. For God has not given us a spirit of fear. Secondly, what's holding you back? What's our restraint? Is it fear? Is it failure? Is it failure? The verse for is it fear was 2 Timothy 1:7. This one, Philippians 3, verse 13. Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Have you failed? Sure. Should we let failure hold us back? Well, we do. But I said, should we? No, we shouldn't. Forgetting those things which are behind. And it is difficult when you've messed up, you've failed at something, especially if that, everybody sees the failure, I messed up, to not even want to try it again because I failed. Forgetting those things which are behind. Then the third thing, Hebrews 11, is it faithlessness? Is it faithlessness? Am I just not trusting? I just don't believe it'll happen. Hebrews 11, verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Now notice that, diligently seek him. Is the thing that's holding me back a faithlessness? I just don't see how God can do this. And really faithlessness, faithlessness is me not trusting God. It's just, let's call it what it is. It's me not trusting God. So is my restraint, is the thing that's holding me back fear? Is it failure? Is it faithlessness? Carrie Schmidt said this, faith isn't a force to make God do my will. It's total trust and faithfulness as God does his will. That's pretty good. Listen to that. Faith isn't a force to make God do my will. Sometimes we look at it like that. Well, I've got to have this faith and then I can force God to do this. No, faith is total trust and faithfulness as God does his will. I just go along with him as he does his will. But if fear is holding me back, if failure is holding me back, if faithlessness is holding me back, I am going to miss out. God has created us for a purpose, and we will be most fulfilled in that purpose. We just will. And we'll get into it more as we continue to look at this dog. But then very quickly, one more thing here is, so in this Lessons from a Sheepdog, and I was so tempted, I thought, I just read the whole chapter to him, but I'm not going to. You should get the book. But who is our ruler? Then what is our restraint? And then number 3, what is our reaction? What is our reaction? When God gives us that opportunity, when we're brought to that point of decision, that point of action, that point of God calling us and then kind of like, here, go ahead, are we going to take this next step of faith? I'm at that point of Peter getting out of the boat or not getting out of the boat. When I'm at that point, what is my reaction? Because I might hold back as I decide who my ruler is. Then there may be some restraint. I hold back a little bit because of some things. But when it comes down to where the rubber meets the road, what is my reaction? First thing, do I recoil because of my past? Do I recoil because of my past? Is there something, just like this dog, in fact, I keep wanting to share things with you, but when he got there and this dog was not eating for days, I forget how long it was, finally he didn't want to do it. But because this ranch where he had it, he said there was they were at the end of this road, there were no cars, there were no boys on bicycles, it was just this peaceful thing. But he didn't want to just let the dog go because the dog could take off into the woods. And so, but then it's like, you know what? I don't want this dog to die. So he takes the leash off or the chain. Well, I don't know, whatever it was. He opens the door kind of thing for the kennel. The dog bolts and takes off and goes into the woods. And the dog was actually out there for several weeks. And because the dog's past caused it to not trust him, and the dog recoiled from even eating because the dog didn't want to have anything to do with that human. Then the dog took off, and we'll just leave it at that, and we'll have to come back we'll talk about more. But then, so there are 3 things on what is our reaction. Do I recoil because of my past? Secondly, do I resist because of my perception? Do I resist because of my perception? Romans 12, 1 and 2, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Do I believe, is my perception that I will be miserable if I allow God to rule my life? Now think about that. That's a good question to ask. Do I feel like I will be miserable if I allow God to rule my life? Because I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm going to let Satan sit on the throne of my life, because I wouldn't do that. I'm not a devil worshiper. But I don't want God sitting on the throne of my life, because I will be miserable. He'll make me do something that I despise. So do I resist because of my perception? Not reality, my perception. Again, I have 3 quotes here from Carrie Schmidt. Second quote from Carrie Schmidt. God is no threat to your desire for a good life. He created that desire. Isn't that good? God is no threat to your desire for a good life. He created that desire. And he plans to fill it with the good life that he designed. God gave us the desire to have a good life, and God wants to fill that desire with the good life that he designed for us. And again, because he designed us, we will be most fulfilled when we do what we've been designed to do. And then, so the third thing, so do I recoil because of my past? Do I resist because of my perception? Then the third thing, do I rebel because of my plans? Do I rebel because of my plans? Carrie Schmidt from the book Discover Your Destiny says this: so what if everything falls into place externally and you appear to be on top of the world if you're not fulfilling any eternal purpose? You know, you could make millions, you could be successful, but if you're not fulfilling an eternal purpose, what good is it? So do I rebel because of my plans? And, you know, unfortunately, we as humans, our flesh, a lot of times we want to rebel because of our own plans. But here's the thing. God has great plans. And this dog, once it submitted itself and let him become its master, it had a wonderful life and was fulfilled and happy. But we'll get into that later. But let's take some time and go, who is my master? Who is sitting on the throne of my life? And after I decide that, what's holding me back from giving myself over and letting God sit on the throne of my life? Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this illustration of this sheepdog. Help us to learn more.